Hi everyone, my name is Heather and I'm with Burner Babies and Iowa Yorkie Babies. So I've actually never made a video that applies to both families. The families taking home a Burner or Bernersdoodle and the families taking home a Yorkie. But I feel like this is an important topic. This topic applies to dogs and their body language. So I feel like this topic really applies to anyone who owns a dog. The other day, I read an article, and what it talked about was body language before the dog bites. And as I was reading the article, I realized, well, I know most of this information, but as I was reading through the article, it stated that most parents or adults that witness a dog bite of a child, they state that there were no warning signs, that the dog kind of bit out of the blue. And I kind of found that hard to believe. Dogs are pretty straightforward with their body language. And so I thought, well, if I could make a video explaining the body language of a dog, perhaps one child could be prevented by being bit by a dog. Now, here I really focus on family oriented dogs. And fortunately, I've never really had to deal with a dog bite of a child. So, as I was reading this article, I really was shocked by the statistics, and I've written them down so I could read them to you today. So, in this article, it stated that 50% of children will be bitten by their 12th birthday. And of those children, half of those dog bites occur by the age of 5. Now, I was really, really shocked by that statistic alone. The fact that so many children are bitten by dogs was really quite alarming to me. Um, it also said that most of those dog bites will occur by a dog that the child knows. Um, which did make sense to me simply because that's the dog that you're around all the time, right? Um, Again, the article did state that the parents or adults that witnessed the dog bite said that the dog gave off no warning. But I, again, really do not believe that that is a true statement because dogs give off what is called a calming signal to show that they are stressed. And so that's what we're going to talk about today are those calming signals to indicate that the dog is stressed. So the very first thing that a dog may do um, to show you that the dog is in distress or would like out of the situation is they may lick their lips. So let's just say, for example, that the child is hugging the dog and the dog is uncomfortable. The dog may lick its lips to show that it's anxious or stressed and would like to get out of that situation. So if you, as the adult in the room, see that this is happening, remove the child from the situation and then discuss with the child a more appropriate way to show affection. The child can pet the dog or whatever, but obviously, whatever the child was doing in that situation, the dog is uncomfortable. And so, what you don't want is for the dog to get a negative um, reaction to the child when the child is nearby or whatever. The second thing that the dog might do is yawn. So let's just say, for example, again, that the dog is being hugged. There are a lot of dog breeds that do not enjoy a hug, especially if the dog is being hugged around the neck or around the throat area. This is a very vulnerable area for the dog. And a lot of dogs will take protective stances when being hugged around the throat or the neck. And so let's just say again, the child is hugging the dog and squeezing really tight. The dog might yawn, which in human terms means that the dog is bored or comfortable. But in a dog world, this is really a signal for help. So if the dog is yawning, that's your cue as the alpha in the situation to please help them. So again, remove the child from the situation, explain to them that the dog is not comfortable and that there's other ways to show affection to the dog. So, keep that in mind. Lip licking, if I could speak, and yawning, huge, huge things. Freezing. So if the child again is hugging, I keep using that as an example, which I'm going to explain later why. If the dog is being hugged and the dog freezes, This is a huge, huge cue that your dog is extremely uncomfortable. It's not because the dog wants the child to hug them and, doesn't want to move so the child is comfortable. It is because the dog is extremely uncomfortable. And usually freezing is the very last thing a dog will do before it bites. So if you see that your dog is tensed up and not moving, the dog is extremely uncomfortable and really wants out of that situation right away. And so the first chance that it gets, it's going to try to dart. And if the child pulls it in closer, this is all bad things happening right now. And your dog is extremely uncomfortable. And the first chance that it gets and it can't escape, the next step for your dog is to bite. And so, again, remove the child, explain why it's not okay, that the dog is uncomfortable, and, keep setting boundaries for the child, explain over and over what appropriate affection and things of that nature are. Okay, this one is going to be tough for a lot of you, and that is not to correct the growl. I know when a dog growls, especially at a child, the very first thing you want to do is correct the growl. That's bad, that's no. But that is a huge defense for your dog. It's a warning. Whatever you just did is not appropriate, and I'm upset, and if you do it again, I'm going to bite. So I'm going to use a personal example in this story. So when my kids were little, we had a dog. Her name was Brittany. My nephew came over to visit. My dog was extremely tolerant. She was like my kids' best friend. She would keep them out of trouble. She would help them get into trouble. She was my kids' first dog. She had been with them since they were toddlers and an infant. And when my nephew came over, he was naughty. He would tease her. He was not nice to her, and I kept correcting him. You can't tease her. You can't do this. And he just kept on, kept on, kept on. She growled at him. I did not correct her. Although I was a little disappointed that she had growled, I immediately asked him what he had done. What did you do to make her growl? Because she would not have growled if you had not done something. Now, yes, I was disappointed that she had growled at him. However, her finally being pushed to the brink of growling when she was an extremely tolerant dog was finally the push that he needed to be nice to her. Do I wish she wouldn't have growled? Of course I wish she wouldn't have growled. However, after that, he was a lot nicer to her because I said the next thing that's going to happen is she's going to bite you. And guess who's going to get in trouble? It's going to be you, not her. Because I've told you over and over, you have to be nice to her. Was I right or was I wrong? I can't tell you. But after that, he was a lot nicer to her. One thing I do not tolerate is someone being mean to my dogs. And so that's exactly how that story went down. He was not being nice to her. Finally, she had been pushed too far and she growled. And so as much as you want to immediately correct the dog, no, you can't growl. No, don't do that. That is your dog's line of defense. Okay, I've been pushed too far, and if you don't stop, I'm going to bite. That's a warning. And so your dog has very little defenses. Again, remember, your dog can't talk like you and I. And so you have to figure out what's happening. Why is the dog growling? And again, talk to the child, find out what's happening. There is a reason why the dog is growling. And so, unfortunately, when a dog bites, it's always the dog that suffers, usually. And so there's got to be a reason behind the growl. Dogs are not vicious by nature. There's always some kind of cause behind it. And I am not one to make excuses for the dogs. If there is a vicious and aggressive dog for no reason, then I'm not going to stand behind that. But there will be a point if appropriate things are not happening between a child and a dog, that needs to be corrected. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit. So the breeds that I raise here, the Berners and the Bernedoodles, are some of the most docile dogs on the planet. They love their families. And some of the most awesome pictures I have are with, you know, children and their dogs, between the Berners and the Bernedoodles. I mean, they genuinely love their families. And I can tell you that my Berners and my Bernedoodles loved to be hugged. There are many breeds out there that don't. My Yorkies, for example, they don't love it. And they are not huge fans of children. Maya, she is my first Yorkie that I ever have, that I ever adopted. She does not like children. Um, she's terrified of them. And in fact, there's many of my Yorkies that do not like children, but they were not raised with small children either. So it is really important, especially with the Yorkies, that children understand that they do not need to pick them up, that they do not need to hug them around the throat. Yorkies will very, very quickly get a bad taste in their mouth for children. And so it's very important that if you adopt a Yorkie from us, that your children are taught how to appropriately interact with the Yorkie. The Berners are much more tolerant. They love their children and they usually enjoy a hug. But make sure that you're reading that body language to make sure that your particular Berner enjoys that hug. Um, I have yet to meet one that doesn't. So just make sure that you're reading that body language. So my particular breeds here are generally family focused. They enjoy their kids. But again, this video is more for maybe you can, you know, send this to someone else who has a dog. Maybe you're witnessing something that maybe isn't the most appropriate interaction between someone else's dog and a child. I think it's important that if you own a dog, that you know this information, that you know the warning signs. I just don't want anybody to get bit. I think that dogs are the most amazing creature on the planet, even if they didn't belong to me to start with. Um, I just, I would hate to have a child be afraid of a dog because of something that happened when they were little and therefore they never own a dog as an adult. That would be a shame. I want everyone to enjoy a dog in their adult life. I think they are a blessing. And so if this can prevent one child from being bit, then I hope it does some good. So that's really all this video was about. Let me make sure I didn't forget anything. I have some notes over here. I don't think so. I think that was it. So if you have any questions about this video, you can post them in the comments below. You can always reach out to me. I can talk to you privately if you have questions about your particular dog. I'll be happy to answer them. And as always, like and subscribe below for more videos. Bye, everyone.